Hello, hello. Welcome back to People Junkie, a podcast about people and their stories, as everyone has one. And maybe you could connect with someone you never thought you would. If you've been following the podcast, we so appreciate it. And if you're new to it, thanks for joining. Today's word of the day is perseverance. This is defined as persistence in doing something despite difficulty or delay in achieving success. And my guest has had to do a lot of it, starting from his journey from Durango, Mexico, to battling a rare form of bone cancer and being kicked out of his house when he came out to his parents as gay. He has fought many battles in his life, but not only has he persevered, but thrived. He has been a big advocate for the LGBTQ plus community and is founder of the QFilms Festival, one of the longest running LGBTQ plus film festivals in the country and the longest in Long Beach, California. This provides a space for all those all over the world who want to share their voices and stories. Without further ado, I bring you Robert Cano. As I said, we have Mr. Robert Cano here. Thank you for joining People Junkie today. I know you're super busy, especially with a lot going on. So welcome.
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be on with you.
Thank you. So you have had quite a journey, mister. So we're definitely going to get into it. Were you always a film buff or a cinephile?
No, I grew up in a very strict Pentecostal church where we were not allowed to go to the movies. So that was not really on my radar. But when I was 18 years old, we moved really close to a video store. And I started renting their independent films. And they just really spoke to me, that independent spirit of just telling their truth, not, ultra glamorized or just dramatized like a lot of Hollywood films are made. So I was just kind of gravitated to that independent film spirit of filmmaking. And I literally rented every title that they had in that small independent section. And from then on, I just kind of, I became a fan of film because, foreign films took me to these exotic lands and these exotic languages. And I really traveled all over the globe, and I just grew to love independent foreign films, documentary. I learned a lot. They kind of became like my teacher.
Wow. So talk a little bit about growing up more, delve more into growing up Pentecostal. I mean, that especially with, you being gay, I'm sure that wasn't easy.
No, it was a challenge. But luckily for me, I went to one of the more progressive Pentecostal churches. There's such a thing. It sounds like an oxymoron, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. But I went to this church that was more like third and fourth generation immigrants. So they weren't as, they were a lot more progressive than, I used to go to my cousin's churches, and, it was scary just listening to what was coming out of the pulpit. It was very, fire and brimstone kind of preaching. Whereas the church where I went to is more about, we're God's children. We should love each other. We should care for each other. So surprisingly enough, I went to a very loving, caring, nurturing church, which is not always the case, but I was very lucky in that sense that I don't know if they knew who I was or I wasn't, because I was just being myself. But it was definitely a very nurturing, loving experience. So there's always this challenge that I have when they speak bad about churches, like, being hateful. And then I'm like, well, my church wasn't like that, but there certainly is that. There certainly is that factor where it goes beyond homophobia, where it's literally homo hate.
Oh yeah.
I can certainly see that point of view, but luckily for me, I was just blessed to go to a very nurturing and loving church.
And you are exactly right. It's very rare. I grew up Catholic. I don't subscribe to any religions now. But being Pentecostal, my neighbors were Pentecostal. It seems like it was super strict. And for you to say that it wasn't, how would you describe that feeling of being accepted I know you said you touched upon that maybe they didn't know who you were, but I think you do know, who kids are and they know who they are. Talk a little bit about more your experience, because I believe you were talking about a pastor who really helped you out. If you can go more in depth, I would appreciate that.
Well, yeah, one of the heads of the church was this lady named Granny, Sister Valencia, but we all called her Granny. And
Hmm.
I was very young, very, very young. And I remember I was in her classroom one time, and Andy, this cute little boy who I thought was my friend, and one time I was coloring really nice. And, I was very artistic even at a young age. So I would draw really well. And one time I remember he said, "Oh my God, you draw like a girl." And I was terrified. I was like, "Oh my God, he knows." And Granny overheard him saying that. And
Hmm.
he said, and she said, "Andy and Dagoberto, I want to see you after class." And I was like, "Oh no, she's going to scold me." But to my surprise, she told Andy, "Don't you ever say anything mean to him. And if you do, you're going to have to deal with me." And of course, that kid never even dared to even speak to me again, much less say something bad to me. But then she turned around to me and she says, "You're a very special boy, little boy. And I just want you to know that God loves you just the way you are. And when you
Mm.
meet mean people like Andy, instead of feeling mad for them, feel sorry for them and pray for them, because they obviously don't understand God's real love." And as a 5 or 6 year old, that spoke to my heart so much. And I carried that throughout my life. And Granny and I, as I grew older, actually we became friends. So I
Oh.
mean, not only was she a mentor, but she was a friend. And I would see her every Sunday at church, and we would talk. And she was just a genuine Christian that loved without judgment and just loved and shared God's love. It was just such a pure love and a pure relationship that we had. And that went on with Sister Paulita, Sister Rosie. They were all, and you're right, I think they probably did know, because they were very protective of me. They were
Hmm.
just, they were there like very protective, but in a very caring, loving, nurturing way. And, it's now looking back at those things that I fully understand how loving and nurturing they were, and how real their love of Christ was in sharing it in such a pure way. So, like I said, I'm really the exception to the rule. I
Hmm.
understand that, but yeah, that was the kind of environment I grew up in. And well, half of the church was my aunts and my uncles. So that kind of helped too. And they were very protective of me and very loving of me. So, I guess I forgot to mention that other part. Yeah, half of the church was literally my family, my natural family. Now, I had my church family, my natural family, but they kind of uh, collided.
Hmm.
So half of the church was, my family. So they were very protective of me and very loving.
And that's another unique thing. We'll definitely delve into what I'm going to talk about a little later, but it's more usual now than it was back then for families to be supportive of any LGBTQ plus individuals. And you've had to persevere a lot. And that was the word that I chose of the day for you, was perseverance. You grew up in Mexico. Talk a little bit about how you got to the United States and who you left behind.
Well, I was born in Durango, Mexico. Uh, so I immigrated to the United States when I was 3 years old. Um, my dad came here undocumented and received a job,
Hmm.
and he was able to gain citizenship through the Bracero program, which is a lot of people don't know about it, but this program went around for like 40 years. It's one of the
Hmm.
longest immigration programs that was. And basically, what it was is, if you worked hard, if you kept your nose clean and didn't go to
Yeah.
jail and worked and had
Uh-huh.
money saved up, and
Hmm.
if you were proved to have a savings account and being able to support your family, you could apply for a green card. So once he got his green card, then he sent for my mom and me, and
Yeah.
we went to Monterrey to get our green card. And but all that time he was working here. So I was being raised by my grandpa Ishmael, who I adored, of course. And the earliest memory I have, because I told my mom, I don't know if it's a dream, but I keep having this image of this blonde haired, blue eyed man with the sombrero, cowboy hat, crying, and me waving goodbye to him.
Oh my
And he says,
gosh.
"Oh, that was your grandpa Ishmael that
Wow.
took us to the train station." And from then on, we went to El Paso because that was my uncle Emilio was at, and he was kind of like the connection between Mexico and the United States. Everybody went through his house, and he was a very loving, caring man. Looking back, I had a really caring, loving family. So
Yeah, it sounds like.
yeah, so they all helped each other. And from what I heard, I mean, I don't remember a lot when I was 3 years old. But from what I heard is that we were going to take the Greyhound from LA to Chicago because my dad was in Chicago. But there was a snowstorm. So my mom had her sister Mercedes in LA, and my mom says, well, we'll go to my Aunt Mercedes' house. So we ended up staying there. And then my dad came to LA, and we reunited with him in LA. And that's at the time we settled in Inglewood. It was close to my dad's work.
Yeah.
He worked as a busboy at the Five Torches restaurant. So then after that, it was just after the Watts riots. A lot of people don't remember the Watts riots.
Oh, yeah.
But what happened during the Watts riots, that whole neighborhood where I grew up, it was all white. It was primarily white, and these beautiful houses, as you can imagine back then. But then the Watts riots happened, and there was the white flight. So what happened is all those people fled to Southgate and Orange County. So there was that white flight. So they left behind these beautiful houses, and my parents took opportunity of that, as did a lot of Latinos and Black people. They bought these beautiful houses. I mean, I remember my parents' house was just beautiful. It was 2 bedrooms, all wood, craftsman. It had a front yard, a backyard, side yards, 3 garages in the back. It was a big yard. I think they bought it at the time for like $16,000.
Wow.
Right.
I think what that would be the equivalent right now, I think maybe 120,000, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, the price of the house obviously would be a lot more, but just buying it for that price.
Yeah. I mean, those houses now are going for like, $500,000. Yeah, so it was crazy, but that whole area, that's what happened to it. That's what, if you go to a South LA, it's all Latino and and Black, because it was very affordable back then. So that's the culture that I grew up in. Not the greatest culture, as you say, for a gay Latino boy, immigrant boy, who didn't speak the language, didn't know the customs. So it was a challenge growing up in that neighborhood.
Yeah, you were checking all the boxes of let me pick on this person, right?
All the boxes: gay, check; immigrant, check; doesn't speak the language, check; doesn't know the customs, check. And let me tell you, it was a real challenge. I mean, it was before bilingual education. I remember, when I was a little boy, my teachers would always slap my hand every time I spoke Spanish. Because you weren't supposed to speak Spanish, but that's the only language I saw it. And one time, my mom picked me up, and the teacher had been slapping my hand all day so much that I was crying.
Oh my
and
gosh,
Robert. My mom said, what's going on? Why are you crying? I said, well, every time I talk Spanish, that teacher slaps my hand. And my mom, not knowing Spanish, had a word with that teacher.
Good for her. Good
and
for her.
She really stood up for me, really gave her a piece of her mind. And that teacher never again touched my hand.
That's what I don't get. Back then, you could literally overstep your boundaries as a teacher. And my mom was talking about the same thing because, she came from Chihuahua, Mexico, Ciudad Juarez, and she would always talk about when they came to California, her and her brothers, that they would get in trouble for speaking Spanish and they would get hit. And I thought, wow, that's so inhumane. And for you to have gone through that, I just can't even imagine. And that's what I'm talking about, the perseverance that you've gone through. And it seemed like, also getting back to you, that your parents were so loving, you had a loving family, but then you came out as gay. How did that work out for you?
Well, me and my mom having come here to the United States and being all that time growing up with her,
Mm-hmm.
she was like my best friend. I mean, like literally, she was my best friend. We used to talk about everything. And my dad would get so upset at me. He says, you just talk to your mom about everything. And it never occurred to me that I did. I literally did.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
we had a wonderful relationship. And my dad and I have always had a challenging relationship
Mm-hmm.
just because he's so macho and I'm not.
Super
So,
machista, huh?
yes, super machista. So we have always had a good relationship, but I can't say we've had a great relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I had already graduated from college. I was working for State Farm. I graduated from Cal State Long Beach. I was making good money working for State Farm, and I was ready to move on and move out of the house and explore my sexuality
Mm-hmm.
uh, and who I was. I just couldn't do it at home. So my parents had just bought this big, beautiful house, and they had this big, beautiful bedroom for me, and it just wasn't working for me. Um, so I told them, I said, and they were trying to get me married off, of course, and that was just not working out. And I was just
Yeah, I
like,
was gonna say, how did that work out?
yeah, it wasn't. I felt so sorry for these girls I was going out with. It was like, sorry, it's not going to work out.
Wow.
So it just got to the point that I had to come out to them, and I did. And my dad said, you're going to have to move, because you have two brothers and a sister that I don't want you influencing them. And my response to them was, I've been helping raising them up for the last 18 years,
Mm-hmm.
you know, changing their diapers, cleaning them up, feeding them, bathing them, taking care of them. And now I'm going to have an influence on them. So
Yeah.
I was like, so I was like, but don't feel sorry for me. I was 26. I was more than ready to move on. So I moved out, and they didn't talk to me for a couple of years, which was very painful
Mm-hmm.
because we were so close.
Yeah.
And not only that, but of course, I didn't go to church because that was my church family that I've had known since I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
So I had known these people for like 21 years, growing up with them, and it just felt very awkward. But as they say, God works in mysterious ways. I went to Calvary Chapel here in Long Beach on 10th and Terminal, and I found a very welcoming, non-judgmental, non-denominational congregation.
Mm-hmm.
The pastor was Pastor Michael Cole, a former drag queen. So,
I'm gonna have to have him on next. I said that before, but it's so true.
so his sermons were always wonderful. He was this southern, southern man, and you know how southern people, they just have a way of telling
Yes,
stories.
yes, they
Uh,
do.
so he
Mm-hmm.
he was just a great storyteller. Then we had Leonore, the church choir, which was like a black gospel choir. So I mean, we would like get down and just praise the Lord and have a good time. And I was just like, wow, this feels like home. So even though I missed my church, I found a brand new congregation, brand new um, set of friends, and it was just
Mm-hmm.
wonderful. The deaconess at that time was Margot. I can't remember her name right now, but Margot. But Margot's still around, and Margot was just so sweet. The first time I walked in there, I was just crying and crying. It was like, oh my God, there's more people like me. I'm accepted. I'm not being judged.
Mm-hmm.
And Margot would just come, and I saw Margot do that to so many times during the Sundays to different people that it's like finally they have found a way to make peace with their spirituality and their
Mm-hmm.
gayness.
Yeah, because that's a hard thing, especially when you're always taught, you got to be straight, you got to procreate. And then you have these churches that are like, okay, you got to pray the gay away. And for you to be able to basically go back to your roots and find not only your spirituality, but your love for God with a community that is so loving and caring. That's such a special thing, Robert.
It is because, so many people are damaged spiritually um, through, through, through hate, through judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them will never go back to a church.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of fortitude. Talk about perseverance. It was funny because when I moved out of the house, the first thing I looked was for a church because that's what I knew. I didn't go
Wow.
look for a bar or or something like that. I was like, oh no, where are the bars now? I was like, where are the churches? Is there a
Yeah.
church that can accept me? Which was very interesting because at that time I still wanted to keep my spirituality, but I didn't know how. But
Mm-hmm.
when I found Christ Chapel, I was able to make peace with my gayness and spirituality. And it was very important to me to start that healing process.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Now you came to Long Beach and you were working for State Farm and you graduated, Cal State University, Long Beach. What then made you decide, you know what, I think I'm going to start a film festival, and not only a film festival, but an LGBTQ plus friendly film festival. So talk a little bit about that.
I was making a lot of friends left and right, and I kind of started like a little screening get together at my 2-bedroom apartment, real tiny, humble one right there on 7th and Loma.
Hmm.
And I started inviting friends, and we would see films and review them. And this was in the middle of the AIDS crisis, and I mean, it
Wow.
was just so horrible the things that they were saying about AIDS. They wanted to quarantine us. They wanted to put us
Hmm.
in an island. They wanted to do this and that to us. And all the images were just all these negative images and all these horrendous things that were being said about us. So I was like, you know what? We have to change that narrative, at least here in Long Beach,
Hmm.
from all this negativity. So it just so happened that I was going to the 1993 Gay and Lesbian March in Washington, D.C. So while I was there marching with the Long Beach chapter,
Hmm.
um, somebody gave me a flyer and said Gay and Lesbian Film Festival. So I went to it and I saw these wonderful positive images of gays and lesbians, and I said, we should do this in Long Beach.
Hmm.
And I was already volunteering at the center. And for those of you who know Long Beach, the art theater is literally right next door to the center.
And can you talk a little bit about the center for those who don't know? Because this podcast goes worldwide, basically.
Yes, so the center provides a safe haven for LGBTQ groups to meet. They have over 20 groups that meet there.
Hmm.
Also, they will, if you need financial help, financial resources, they will connect you with us with those resources. They also have a senior program for senior citizens, a youth program for our youth.
Hmm.
Um, they have all kinds of programs. They also provide HIV testing, STI testing.
Hmm.
So it's basically like the hub here in Long Beach for the gay community. It's just our safe haven. And it's been there for, I would say, 40 years. So
Wow. Yeah.
providing those kinds of services. We also provide, a lot of services for trans
Hmm.
people. So it's just a way to connect with the community and also to help you with resources that you might need. So I was already volunteering there, and I brought up to their board, what if we start a film festival?
Hmm.
And they said, sure, great new idea. I had just finished graduating Cal State Long Beach.
Hmm.
So I went around to the theaters and they were just like, who are you? What are
Hmm.
you going to show? Are you going to show porn? Are you going to show smut? So no,
Ridiculous.
we're going to show LGBTQ documentary films. So we couldn't find anywhere, nobody that would have us. But I had just finished graduating from Cal State Long Beach. There's a small auditorium that seats 200 people in the student union.
Hmm.
And I got my alumni discount card. got,
Nice, nice.
and I got us in there, and we started this film festival. And for opening night, we were showing Together Alone, which was like the hot new gay independent film. But of course, it couldn't be shown anywhere in Long Beach. So we advertised it, and the theater holds 200 people,
Hmm.
and over 500 people showed up. So
Amazing.
right from the get-go, we knew that there was hunger
Mm-hmm.
for LGBT content. And you have to remember, I mean, the representation was so negative back then. I
Yeah.
mean, I remember that, every time there was a gay character on TV, we would all be on the phone. Hey, there's this gay character, but he's a serial killer. So what? At least it's some kind of representation. We were
That's
so
so
hungry for
that's
any
so that's so
representation.
sad. Yeah, when you have to
I
grasp at
know.
it. It's not like a Will and Grace type of situation, right?
No, I mean, but those were the images that we had.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
were always serial killers, or we were always ultra feminine, butts of the joke.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of representation. So for the first year, basically my mandate to the committee was to only allow positive images of us to counter all the negative stereotypes and images that were out there. And that was something that we worked really hard on here in Long Beach.
Mm-hmm.
We would always put press releases out there for positive image of ourselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a challenge, but it was a challenge that we needed to do for our community.
And was that the only challenge? For those who don't know, Long Beach is a very friendly city to the LGBTQ plus community. We have one of the largest pride parades and festivals in the country, if not the world. So with that said, what challenges, if any, did you have?
You know what? The challenges were there, but even our straight allies here, and I mean, I remember they would give us so much stuff. Like we would go to Grandma Sugar Plums, which is no longer there, or we go
Mhm.
to the library, which is still there on
Yeah.
Broadway and Redondo.
Mhm.
They would say, "Hey, we're having this opening night reception. Can you give us cake, cheese, whatever?" And they were always so good to us. They would say, "What do you need? When do you need it?"
Mhm.
So they were always very good to us. Um, and like you said, for those who don't know, Long Beach is just such a diverse and accepting community
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
even though there were challenges, the challenges were made that much easier by our allies who were very supportive and still are to this day.
Yeah, I mean, you have to congratulate yourself and everyone that has worked for the Q Films, because it's been over 25 years and running, and it's gotten bigger and better. Now, you did have some challenges last year due to COVID, like everyone else. Talk a little bit about those challenges.
Well, I mean, it was definitely a challenge. It was during the coronavirus. And we were ready to go for the
Hmm.
film festival, and then
Hmm.
everything shut down. But our board was like, we're going to make this happen. We don't know how, but it's going to happen.
Hmm.
So then we've heard that you could do that online,
Yeah.
film festivals.
Hmm.
So we were like, maybe we can do that. And since we were ready to go, uh, we just sent the filmmakers saying, hey, you know what? For obvious reasons, we can't have live uh, uh, theater, going to a theater live, but we can do it online. And they were very excited. Uh, so it was really awesome for us to go from a local to a global film festival.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, and what was really cool about it that we, we were no longer limited to Long Beach or Southern California.
Hmm.
These films went all over the world. We got messages from India, Brazil, the UK,
Wow.
uh, Germany, all over the place. These people saying, "We're really enjoying your film festival," and we're like, where are you? So yeah, it was really cool that this small little local film festival really exploded and went global. So that
Hmm.
was very satisfying to see that literally the whole people from all over the world were enjoying our film festival.
And how has that helped you with this year's film festival, which is coming up? And we'll be talking about that shortly. How has that helped you expand not only your audience, which you talked about, but also contributors like directors, producers who can, attempt to show their film at the Q Films Festival?
Yes, well, we've expanded quite a bit. I think we're showing 73 films
Wow.
this year,
Hmm.
from covering 73 films from, what was it, the last count? Last count, I think we had 20, 27 countries, six continents. So every continent is literally represented except for Antarctica. Not
Not
a lot
yet,
of,
not yet, right?
not yet, not
Because
yet.
because there have to be gays everywhere. Like there's humans
Right.
everywhere, right?
So I mean that's quite an accomplishment to have every possible continent represented. So yeah, we have like 27 countries represented, uh, which is awesome. And we're still going to be showing some films online,
Hmm.
and we're going to have, of course, the live audience,
Yeah.
and we're going to have outdoor screenings at the Museum of Latin American Art on opening night, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Hmm.
So we're actually expanding the program um, to live audience, outdoor audience, and online audience.
Yeah, talk a little bit more about the precautions that you're going to take because we still are in the pandemic. We still have to deal with COVID-19 and now all these different variances.
Yes, so we're following the strict CDC guidelines. So you have to show that you're vaccinated, have to have proof of vaccination, and you also have to wear your mask in order to attend either an indoor or outdoor screening. And of course, if you watch it online, you can watch it however you want.
Yeah, actually, that sounds fun. And I know Long Beach has done a very good job of getting individuals, their shots and their vaccines. So I'm sure you're going to have a ton of people just, waiting for the indoors and outdoors. And now you talked about having it at more than one space, right? It's going to be at the Art Theater, and then it's also going to be at MOLA, which is the Museum of Latin American Art, right?
Yes, so we're really excited about being in Mula. And for those who haven't been to Mula, you're in for a treat because it's going to be under the stars and it's at the Sculpture Garden, which is this beautiful setting with all these beautiful sculptures. So if you haven't been to Mula, now is a great opportunity to support the LGBTQ community and also enjoy LGBTQ films.
Absolutely. If you're just joining us, we are speaking with Robert Cano. He is the founder and the CEO of the QFilms Festival, which is the longest running film LGBTQ plus, LGBTQ plus films festival, not only in the city of Long Beach, but also one of the longest of those film festivals in the country. And we'll be giving you more information about how to obtain either looking at the films in person or virtually. So again, thanks for joining us, Robert. Why do you feel that it's important to have the Q Films Festival?
You know, our voices are still underrepresented.
Hmm.
We've come a long ways. I must say that we've come such a long ways. I mean, you look at the content on Netflix now; they actually have a tab just for LGBTQ films.
Wow.
But there's always a need for it for us because we always need to tell our stories, our truths, and a lot of times these aren't films that you're going to see on TV or regular platforms.
Nope. No.
Um, and these voices are so underrepresented: the Latino voices, the Asian voices, the African American community, the Middle Eastern voices are voices that are so underrepresented in our community that there's always a need to tell these stories, and not only to tell these stories, but to nurture those filmmakers that are going to be telling our future stories.
Yeah.
So these filmmakers start off with these films, small films, but then they'll go on to make major films. So it's very important to have a platform, create a platform for these filmmakers to have a start, to start telling their stories, so they can be seen and heard, and so they can move forward also in their storytelling and movie making.
What are some of the best experiences or memories that you've had? I know you've gotten a lot of awards, so if you could talk about that.
Well, I mean, just the opening night when we had a 200 seat theater and 500 people showed up. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, we never. I remember we were like, like an hour before the screening, there was like maybe 10 people there, and then we were wondering, God, is anybody going to show up? Is anybody going to show up? And then, boom, 500 people show up, and we were like, oh my God. So that was pretty amazing, and right there and there, we knew that we had something special.
Hmm.
Another one was when we were showing lesbian comma drama called Fire, and it was our opening night film, and I was at the art theater, and it was a women's film, and so many women and lesbians were in line, and the line literally stretched all the way down Fourth, and then went all the way around Cherry. And I didn't realize that was going on, and I came out of theaters thinking, God, is there going to be anybody in here? And then I saw that line, and it was just like, wow, look how supportive the community is. And that same story has repeated itself so many times that it's just been so wonderful to just see the community just respond so well to our film festival.
Talk a little bit about the awards that you've gotten, because I mean, you've been such a huge advocate for the LGBT plus community, not only with the QFilms Festival, but also you being you, Robert.
Well, when you start doing these things, you don't think, oh, what awards I'm going to receive.
Mm-hmm.
It's been wonderful to receive awards from a lot of dignitaries and a lot of mayors here in Long Beach. I received my first award from Bob Foster, who's the mayor of Long Beach, way back when. So then I received a congressional award from Alan Lowenthal, our congressman. Then another one from Suja Lowenthal, and Bonnie Lowenthal,
Mm-hmm.
Lowenthal's. So, and then I received art director of the year from the Long Beach City Arts Council, and that meant a lot to me because those are my colleagues that I work with. So for them to acknowledge me was wonderful. And then I received another award from the county arts count at Los Angeles Arts Department.
Mm-hmm.
A lot because I grew up, near downtown LA. So to get that award, and another one that I really enjoyed. It wasn't so much an award, but I got to have dinner with Gavin Newsom
Mm-hmm.
way back in the day when he was kind of an unknown. He was the lieutenant governor, and he really wasn't well known. But I got to have like a one-on-one dinner with him, and I really treasure that because I had such a great time with them.
Mm-hmm.
He totally won me over at that time. He was just so smart and knowledgeable
Mm-hmm.
and honest with his answer. And it was just, like two people just having dinner. And that was definitely one of the highlights. Um, Another highlight, I got invited to the White House.
Really? You never
was
told
under
me that.
It was under the Bush administration, so I kind of quiet. But I know one of my friends was working for George Bush at that time, and I got
Mm-hmm.
and I was just like, "Ooh, should I go? Shouldn't I go?" I thought, "Why not? I'm an American. I should go represent." And
Absolutely.
but it was very quiet. It was very hush hush. No cameras were allowed, But I mean, looking back, it was just so humble because I mean, you're talking about an immigrant from Durango, Mexico, who grew up in South Central LA, and here I am in the White House. So yeah, it's been all those awards and all those opportunities have definitely been very humbling.
Wow. Getting back to the Q films, the actual films, I think I've seen a few, or maybe one or two about conversion therapy. And for those that don't know, conversion therapy is where the churches decide to tell you, hey, you know what, you don't need to be gay. All you need to do is pray the gay away. Talk a little bit about your thoughts on that and what you feel can be done about it.
Oh, conversion therapy. There's a hot potato.
Yeah, I gave you that hot potato.
Yeah, you know, well, I mean, just speaking from my own experience, I would pray to God and I would say, God, I don't want to be gay. This is not this is not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
But you have to come in a place of honesty, and I was always taught by these loving people in church, surprisingly enough, that God doesn't make junk. God loves me just as who I am.
Mm-hmm.
He made me, uh, you know, and He's my Father, and I'm His Son. That's it. You don't like it? That's on you, not me.
Yep.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but getting back to conversion therapy, that is just such a harmful thing because, I mean, not only does that harm the person, but it goes beyond that. It harms the individual in so many ways. Physically,
Mm-hmm.
can do so much harm to you. Mentally, it can do such harm for you. uh, psychologically it can do so much harm, and spiritually it can do so much harm. So you have so much harm that's being done to this person that it's really just to me, it's just kind of like an evil thing to do to someone, especially to someone who's just trying to figure out where they're going or who they are or what they're about.
Yeah.
It's so damaging in so many ways. And it's no surprise that a lot of people, not a lot of people, but some people that go through conversion therapy end up harming themselves. Uh,
Yeah.
and in so many ways, as it is, um, LGBTQ youth are, 4 times more likely to commit suicide. So when you add all this confusion, hate, and just negativity to the equation, it's just a very harmful thing.
Yeah, and you would think it's 2021, we've supposedly grown so much as human beings, as a culture, that wouldn't even come into play, but it really does, and that's sad. What are some of the things that you would tell individuals who maybe aren't comfortable coming out yet or still struggling with their sexuality?
That is a journey, and it's your journey, and you own that journey. I don't own it. It's your journey, and you decide when you feel it's safe. First of
Hmm.
all, that's a very important factor, where it's safe and you're comfortable with who you are.
Yeah.
You know, I waited till I was 26 to come out to my parents when, I had my major, I had a job, I had a live lined up. That was my journey, and that's when I
Yeah.
was ready. But some people are already younger than that. Some people are already older than that.
Yeah.
It's your journey, and don't let anybody tell you when or where. When you feel comfortable and safe, and love yourself. You are who you are. Love yourself, and there's a big community out here that's waiting for you to help you, to sponsor you, to support you. We're here. We're waiting for you. So to all those babies, LGBTQ people, it's going to be okay. We're here for you. Just be yourself, and when you're ready, and when you want to come out, we're here for you.
And you have a lot of allies. Remember that you have a lot of
Yes.
allies outside that community as well. You know, 20 something years with the Q Films Festival. Where do you see it going from here?
I just love these young kids. I call them kids because for me, they are kids. But I love the ideas that they come out with, like their idea this year, we want to get it out into the community. And I would say, go for it. And they found Mula. So, I see it going to other places, other venues, expanding. I see the trans community is really coming into their own,
Hmm.
making these fantastic films, and hopefully we'll keep showing them. So I just see our films just also being more embraced by our allies.
Hmm.
Self, thank you so much for your support. Uh,
Thank you.
but I mean, the film festival really has taken an entity of their own. I mean, we get people that come from Boston. I kept meeting this guy, and I said, "Where are you coming from? Where do you?" I say, "I see you here every year." And he's like, "Well, I come from Boston. I love your film festival." And so we get people from all over coming, not just from Southern California. So I just see ourselves just finding new venues and just growing and growing.
All right. With the few minutes we have left, I just want to make sure before I go into any further questions, talk a little bit talk one more time about the precautions for those who are going to be in person next week going to the Q Films Festival. What can they
Okay, so
expect?
so we are following CDC guidelines.
Hmm.
The CDC guidelines are that you show proof of vaccination.
Hmm.
So whether you go indoors or outdoors, because we're having indoors and outdoor screenings, you
Hmm.
have to show proof of vaccination and you have to wear a mask.
Okay. And one of the big questions, where can they find you to, give all your social media handles, and if you could spell it out, because some people aren't going to be watching this, they're going to be listening to it.
Yes. So the main one that you can get all the information from is our website. And the website is www.qfilms, that's FILMS, longbeach.com. That's www.qfilmslongbeach.com.
Now, if you can actually show a little bit more of your T-shirt, I have one of those. It's from the QFilms Festival, and it's so cute. So if anyone that's going to go down there, and if you have a little bit to give, definitely take one of those home. And I'm going to show you. Now, there you go. It says the 25th anniversary. Again, it's been 25 years and longer. And to let you know, I'm representing my Los Bukis because it's Latino, Latina, Latinx, Hispanic Heritage Month, and we're definitely celebrating. And for those of you who don't know, Los Bukis are basically the
Beatles of
Mexico. Woohoo! Absolutely. You've been such a pleasure to have on People Junkie. I hope people learn more about you and the amazing things that you do. And the last question I have, because when we spoke before, you really schooled me on this. A lot of people tend to think that pride parades and things of that sort came about due to the Stonewall riots, and that may be true. But if you could give a little history as to when it really started and where.
Oh, yes. So we all know that Stonewall, or we think we know that Stonewall is where the gay liberation started.
Mm-hmm.
Here in LA, we had actually, well, not me, but those people whose shoulders I stand upon.
Mm-hmm.
The Black Cat was this gay bar in Silver Lake that was constantly being harassed, and the patrons had it, and they started protesting. And this was way before Stonewall.
Yeah.
This predated Stonewall by like I think 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you can Google Black Cat, and it will tell you the history. Here in LA, we were already fighting for those rights. We were already protesting. We were already marching against the brutality of the police department against LGBTQ folks. And a lot of that started right here in Silver Lake in LA, in the Hollywood area,
Mm-hmm.
pre-Stonewall. So we have a lot of pride here in LA, a lot of work that we started and then went on to move forward.
Yeah, so there you go. You got another history lesson. And thank you so much for being a part of the People Junkie world. I'll definitely have you on again. Super excited. I also have another show here in Long Beach called Long Beach Life, and we're definitely going to be on the scene so that you don't miss a thing from the Q Films Festival. So thank you so much, Robert, for joining us. I wish you nothing but success, and you do have an ally in me and many others like me. So have a good one. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Laura Marin, for all your support and all your help. Truly appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Thank you so much, amigo. Have a good one.
You too.
All right. Bye. Well, thanks for joining us on our latest edition of People Junkie with Robert Cano, the CEO and founder of the QFilms Festival, one of the longest running LGBTQ plus films festival in the country and the longest running in Long Beach, California. More than 25 years and still going. It starts this week, September 30th, going all the way up until Sunday, October 3rd. And we will link the description to how you can get tickets either online or in person. Thanks again for joining People Junkie. Make sure to check us out on all our social media platforms. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please go ahead, like and subscribe and hit that little notification button. It'll let you know when the next People Junkie will be dropping. And it's okay if you're on the go, because guess what? We got you. We're on Spotify and soon on Apple Podcasts. And remember, wherever you go or whatever you do, put a smile on your face. You never know whose day you're going to make. Ciao for now.